Hey Hollywood Hills fans, welcome to another Monday. Now, this weekend was a cool one. We actually got to go out and see you guys and watch some racing. And it was killer. It was the Farm Jam. They had just over 300 entries at their third round of the series. And it really, for us, I think by us I mean Hollywood Hills, LiveX, and the whole racing fraternity, it allows us to kick off the racing once again in the second half of the season and throw all of that lockdown rubbish out of the window. Let's just keep this thing hammering the whole way through, play the game, and we can keep on racing, and that means Hollywood Hills here can keep on reporting as well. So this week we're going to be reviewing the pro categories of the GXCCs. Farm Jam will come up next week. We're going to work on that edit right now, but this is something that we got ready last week to clear our plate. This is the pro categories championship rankings with 4 rounds counted and 4 rounds to go from the 2021 GXCC Championship. Check this out. A couple of these are getting super tight. This GXCC racing action powered by Dunlop is brought to you by SPX Logistics, Dunlop, RME Bearings and Transmission, and driven by Bikers Warehouse. Pro categories this time around, and the gates were absolutely stacked at the start of 2021. Everyone knew what they had to do. There was a couple of new reigning champions, and everyone was coming out swinging hard. A couple of new teams also started to fill the pro gates. So it was no guarantee we were going to see the same winners as last year, and with new events on the calendar. The big hot one that was Rustenburg, where we saw everyone dust off new gear. Then Moddy Molly. It was a crazy one. It was the first time for many years that the GXCCs had combined themselves as a club, regional and national championship campaign. And then after Moddy Molly, we started to roll out to Heidelberg right at the beginning of winter, and this would go down as history. And the fast one. It was super quick and dusty as well. And the pros were definitely starting to get twitchy as the championship started to get a little bit thinner on the ground for the points. The final round of the season before we closed for the mid-year break was Ventersdorp. It was the cold one. And it also showed us who would go into the halfway marker as championship points leader. So 4 venues counted, 4 races on the calendar still to go. Let's start going down and check out who were the pinners walking away with the points before the mid-season gap. Starting things out with our GXCC Pro ladies, and at the opening round with the combined gate we had plenty of girls going out of the queue. Everyone knew who they were up against, but there was a no-show from the reigning champion that was Megan Jonker, meaning no matter what, in 2021 we would see a new champion. The reigning champion coming out of last season's Pro-Am ladies was Remarie Ellis. This year, she started to make the move up and line up with the pro ladies. And I'll tell you what, in her first couple of rides, she showed her form and her consistency as well. She opened up at Rustenburg with a solid number 5 spot. She dropped a little bit of time out at Moddy Molly with a number 6, but finished off strong at Heidelberg and Ventersdorp with 5s and 5s. And as you can tell with the numbers, they add up nicely. A 5th overall in the pro ladies at the halfway marker of the season sets Remarie Ellis up very strongly to try and challenge and climb a little bit higher towards the end of the season and in the championship. Her closest rival on paper at the moment is Mandy Pretorius, the upstart and Yamaha lady coming out of Botswana. She can turn her hand to anything, but when it gets wild, dusty and fast, that's where she is at her very, very best. She opened up strongly at the beginning of the season out at Rustenburg in the hot, dusty terrain with a 3rd place. Moddy Molly was not a best race for her. She took her lowest finish of the season with a number 7, but number 7 still gives you enough points on the plate to stay in the mix. A 4th at Heidelberg at the fast one. No problems on her machine there, where a lot of people did suffer mechanicals. And then a 4th at the final round. Gives her 4th place on the page. Zelda Mayberg has been a bit of a standout rider on the season. Very busy on the tours as well. She's racing around about 4 championships in 2021, and she opened up her account early on with a 4th place. Only dropped 1 position at Modi Modi, which was a big challenge to a lot of the girls, and then another 2 very strong results at Heidelberg and Ventersdorp sets her up well as she sits in 3rd place. She's definitely a championship rider. She will bring it home and bring the bacon at every single round. She sits 3rd, and it's not too far off the back wheel of 2nd place at this stage as well. But 3rd, for now, looks pretty safe. Carla Niebuhr has been working on her flat-out riding as well. She's got much faster and much braver in the off-season, and at the opening round, it showed what she had come to do. 2nd place at the opening round at the Hot One at Rustenburg shows that the Rubine Racing lady had definitely put in the work in the off-season, and because she is used to riding in that hot and dusty terrain, the hot and fast ones were really custom-made for Carla. 4th place at Modi Modi was her bogey ride and her lowest ride of the season. But if you can say that 4th place is your lowest finish, then that's a happy time indeed. A bag of 2nd places at Heidelberg and Ventersdorp showed that her consistency and form is right there, and she is rock solid in the number 2 position heading in to the 2nd half of the tour. Make some noise though for Leah Haygate. Not every hole shot, but lots of them. But what I can tell you is she has been the fastest lady on each of the racing laps of the GXCCs, and she has seen the flag every single time, first on the Pro Ladies Gate. At the moment, Leah Haygate is on for the Golden Championship season, meaning that she has taken every single win. 4 starts, 4 flags, 4 wins, and the perfect 100 points sees Leah Haygate in her first season of racing the GXCCs at the top of the charts with the perfect score. Can anyone beat Leah Haygate as we head into the 2nd half of the tour? At the moment, it's looking like a runaway win and a possible runaway championship as well. Confirmation of Haygate on top then with the perfect 100 number. Carla Niebuhr, consistency pays the bills as she rocks into the number 2 spot ahead of Mayberg, Pretorius and Ellis, with Duplessis, Olivier, Petersen, Bonsack and Prinsloo rounding out our top 9 in the ladies' pros. A new category rolled out of the gate in 2021 as well, where we saw the veterans separate themselves away from the masters. These are the elder statesmen coming out of the GXCC Tour lineup. Often these riders would be battling to make their way inside of a top 10 on the Masters Gate. Now with the standalone category, they can go out and truly race for their own championship. Bertus Becker on some of the oldest machinery out there, whether he rocks out an old Gas or an old Yamaha IT, he is guaranteed to be on the oldest machinery at GXCC Racing. But don't say that you have to have the best to get on top. Bertus Becker sitting inside the top 5, coming off a 5th place at the opening round and a couple of 4th places coming out of Modi Modi and Heidelberg. It was a 0 at the final round though at the cold event that sees him drop down to 5th place, but he could respond and get a little bit higher up if he has a couple of good results. Stefan Bagnall, a 0 at round number 1, but a 5th, a 3rd and a 4th place sees him getting himself into a position to possibly climb the ladder and challenge for a number 3. Remember, this is on the calendar for an 8-round championship, and if you can bring home a finish every time, you've got a very good chance of climbing that ladder. Willem Swiggers knows how to nail down a championship and put a full season together. He came out of the season swinging on the Yamaha, and a bit later on, I think it was just before the last round of the championship, he swung across to a different brand and stepped out onto the KTM. Swiggers walking away with 2 double trouble 2nd places at rounds 1 and 2, a 0 at the fast one out at Heidelberg. That was clearly his mechanical for the season, and he's going to look to try and throw that one away, and then a 3rd place. Johan Bosch has had a measured approach coming forward into this championship. Also a rider that is out there lined up on around about 3 or 4 championship tours. So his calendar is super busy, but Third place, second and second shows that Bosch is on the bubble and starting to build pace. And his closest rivals also tell me he is getting closer to their back wheel. There's only one place to go from third and second, and that is up to first place. At the moment though, Bosch solid in the number 2 spot with only one place to go. He's looking for his first win of the season. To do that though, he is going to have to beat this guy. Ernst Slabbert, who was on the box most of last season in the Masters Gate, struggled to get a win though, but he did have some good 2s and 3s out there when luck and pace was on his side. This time around though, racing as a full veteran, he went 1 for 1 for 1 for 1. Same as Leah Haygate in the Pro Ladies Gate, he is eyeing up the Golden Championship and trying to go undefeated in the inaugural Veterans Championship for 2021. For Rubine Racing, Ernst Slabbert has seen the flag every single round, and for now, it's all golden as we head to round number 5. Slabbert also has a couple of different arrows in his quiver. He can go for the big 350 or the 300 smoker. It does look like he is enjoying the 300 smoker and will bring the 2-stroke machine to the line for the second half of the championship. Slabbert then on top with the perfect 100 numbers. That's 25 points out of every single win. Bosch, Swickers, Bagnall, Becker, Bester and Ian Pepper, a couple of championship runners, will be back after early season injuries to try and topple the charts. But right now, they're all chasing down on Slabbert. And then to the Masters Gate, and you'd think by removing the veterans, you'd have a smaller gate coming off the Masters, but it was almost the polar opposite. We had even more Masters coming out of the gate in the early running of the season, and a couple of different flavors, names and manufacturers, all trying to see what they could do about getting onto the top step or the points, scoring positions on the Masters Gate. A no-show at round number 1 at Rustenburg, but at round number 2, Carl LaRue, Mealy's as he's known, walked away with a second place. That was his dust-off ride. But at Heidelberg, where it got super fast, he got his big win going. And then a problem at the final round at Ventersdorp, 8th place, but still good enough for 5th. He should be one of the ones to watch out to climb the ladder quickly in the second half of the championship. Able to run in the top 3s every time now. Rassi Venter, the picture of consistency as always, likes the fast, wide open stuff, suffers a little bit when it gets tech and gnarly. 6th place, 9th place, 4th was his best run, as you'd expect at the wide open track that was Heidelberg, and then 5th place at the cold one in Ventersdorp. Rassi will definitely be inside the top 5 come the end of the season. He'll be working on his fitness as we go forward into the last remaining events on the tour, but Rassi is a good bet for a top 4 nonetheless. That's where he's sitting right now. Coming into this season, after some standout rides last year, it was a strong bet to see if Warwick van Schalkwyk could actually walk away with the championship this year. He'd been out of racing for many years before he swung a leg on the 2020 championship, but early season injuries held him back this time around. A second at the opening round showed his form. Then a 6th and a 9th saw him sliding down the championship points tally. He seems to be back at full fitness now. At Ventersdorp at the cold one, he showed that he could run the pace of the big dogs once again with a second place. But is it too late in the championship to see him climb up and challenge higher than his current 3rd place in the rankings? Time alone will tell. Wayne Farmer, who is a multiple national, regional and club champion. This year, he has been chopping and changing machinery, starting out with the 2-smoker, but then starting to think about the big move across onto 4 strokes once again. 2 wins on the bounce at the opening 2 rounds of the season. Then a 0, a tough event out at Heidelberg, sees him drop down the ladder. He bounced back nicely with the 1st place at Ventersdorp on the big 450, so it's clear that he's starting to get a bit more comfortable. The 0 is not going to be throwawayable either, because Farmer did not actually turn up for that round, so he's going to be praying that he's going to have some good solid results for the rest of the season. It's consistency that pays the bills though every single time, and for the first time in his racing career, Francois Swanepoel, now on the spherical logistics Husqvarna, is on the tippy top step. He hasn't got a win yet, but he's got 2/3, a 2nd and a 4th place. If we go down the road of throwaway points, Farmer may be able to climb the ladder. But if we don't go down that road, Francois has got a chance, slim as it may be, to walk away with his first championship of GXCC racing. At the moment, all the pressure and all the eyes are on Swanepoel as we head into the decisive final few rounds of the 2021 Tour. Points confirming them. That's how tight it is at the top. Just 5 points at the moment sees Swanepoel on top ahead of Farmer. Van Schalkwyk is closing in and has the pace as well, along with momentum. He's ahead of Venter, Leroux, Poole, Ellis, Hall, Steinberg and Frederick. At the moment, Swanepoel remains the man on top. For the seniors gate, it has been a one-man show for the last couple of seasons where Wade Blau has been near on unstoppable. This time around, though, a couple of comeback riders, along with new manufacturers, will see a couple of riders run close and possibly be able to take the win away from the Super Senior. Hunter Simon, on his day and when the track suits his style, can do incredible things. No longer known as a quad racer, he is an Iron Man, meaning he can turn his hand to any form of motorsport, and not only that, can walk away with wins as well. Third at the opening round, and then Modi Molly. With the GXCCs and Nationals combined, Hunter Simon took his first ever senior full gate win and showed what he could do. Unfortunately, a 7th at the next round and a 0 at the next round showed that he started to drop down the ladder. Dion du Toit sitting in 4th place at the moment at the early part of the season, now riding out of the CIT franchise company on a Kawasaki. Kawasaki making a big comeback in 2021, showed his pace. 2nd, 4th, 2nd, and that 2nd was with a broken collarbone as well. And unfortunately, the broken collarbone also gives us the answer as to why it was a 0 from Ventersdorp. If he can come back strong, this is the only rider that can show a wheel to Wade Blau at this stage. He should be at full fitness by the time we go racing once again. Kachi, always going to be the man to watch on the top Yamaha on the gate right now. Loves every single style of terrain, doesn't really have any faults on his riding style, whether it's tech, flat out, fast, uphill, downhill. He's got the full bag and he can pull it out whenever he wants to. Consistency and form, though, is what he is all about. 5th place at the opening round showed good numbers. Modi Molly, a bogey ride that time around with a 10th place, but he rebounded nicely at the Heidelberg Fast One with a number 5 and an even better ride. In fact, his highest finish of the season at Ventersdorp on the chilly terrain gave him a 3rd place. That's why we see him starting to climb the ladder. Yanni Potgieter has been on the radar for a very long time now, riding out of Mastercar's VW, and he has started to look super tasty and comfortable in the seniors gate. A 6th, but improving quickly to a number 2 spot at Modi Molly. We thought we'd seen the best out of him. He had dropped down to a number 6 place at Heidelberg, but responded and rebounded at the final round before the mid-season break at Ventersdorp at the Cold One with a number 2 spot. He is now sitting 2nd place in the championship and eyeing up potentially his first win of the season. Even if he can't get that done, he should be able to defend the number 2 spot. But all eyes, as always, on the Super Senior, Wade Blau. With times and consistent riding that would make a lot of the pro riders a little bit twitchy, Blau is the man. A win at the opening round, a bogey ride at Modi Molly, but his worst ride of the season gives him a 2nd place. He came back, pinned hard and wide open at Heidelberg, the Fast One, with a number 1, even though he took a dive and almost lost that race, in fact, to the charging Dion du Toit, but did get the flag in the end. And then at Ventersdorp, showing his all-round skills on every part of terrain, in every condition, he got another number 1 plate. So at the moment, 3 number 1s and a number 2 sees Blau on top. Not going to be the perfect season this time around. He threw away 1 or 2 points at round number 2. 95, beating out Yanni Potgieter's consistent 74, ahead of Kachi, du Toit, Simon. Thompson may come back strong as well, ahead of Rousseau, Goos, Vermeulen, and Van Rooyen. Right now, Blau remains the Super Senior to beat. High schools was going to be an interesting one coming forward into 2021. Almost half of the high school 125cc gate from last year jumped up into the OR3s, leaving the gap and making it open playing. No matter what happened, we were going to see new winners, possibly new podium threats, and definitely a new champion in 2021. He's been coming on strong the last couple of seasons. Only 1 or 2 rides on the 125 before he came into the 2021 tour, and Jason Leslie got himself comfortable at Rustenburg with the number 10. That was the last of his double-digit finishes. Since then, he started to climb the ladder pretty strong. Modi Molly was difficult terrain and a hard race to manage as well, with a lot of dust and navigation issues for tons of the riders. 9th place for him there. He improved at Heidelberg, which was the fast one. We thought that the little 125s would battle with that terrain, but they were singing a song all the way down the big straights. 7th place for Leslie at that round. And then his best ride to date and his best GXCC finish ever. He got himself up into a number 4. Up the road from him and sitting in 4th place, one of the standout riders from last year's championship, although he only saw the top 6 1 or 2 times. This time, a 3rd, a 4th, and a 2nd sees him sitting in a sweet spot, number 4. He's chasing down on one of the whole shot kids and superstars of the gate, Josh Alexander, out of the Bikers Warehouse squad. 4th place, 2nd at Modi Molly, a 5th at the pinning flat-out superhighway that was Heidelberg, and then a 3rd in the tight technical terrain of Ventersdorp. Watch out for Josh Alexander. In his first full season of 125s, we haven't seen the best of him yet. He's coming on strong and may be able to take that momentum forward into the second half of the season, as long as he keeps his blade sharp and keeps on training in the mid-season gap. Alexander has got the potential to go for the wins. Derek Karam is on the money as well this season. Very short saddle time on the 125. He was a stellar rider on the 85s. He's one of the small dudes on the 125s this year. 2nd place, 1st place with his first 125 GXCC win at Modi Molly, then a 2nd place at Heidelberg at the fast one. His bogey event was the tight, technical, freezing cold Ventersdorp. That's why we see him sitting down in 2nd place, but he can definitely fight hard, and the championship chase is a 2-horse race now. Karam is in the number 2 spot for now, but he could turn that all around with a couple of banger results. The next event on the calendar is going to be Dalmas, and history shows that the Karam brothers do like it out there. Last time Dalmas was wet and muddy. This time it's going to be wide open dust bowl racing. But remember, for Karam, he's got one man in his sights at the moment, and the target is fixed. It's John Buerter, riding out of the CIT franchise company squad. Couple of seasons now on the 125s, and the tallest kid on the gate for sure. The most aggressive style, and does seem to make that bike his very own. He opened the season with a win, showing that he was setting his stall out early. A bogey event when the racing combined with the national tour out at Modi Molly gives him a 4th place ride. Then in the second quarter of the season, it was the John Buerter show. A 1st place at Heidelberg at the fast one, and then a 1st place at the combined old school layout track that was Ventersdorp. Shows that Johnny Boy is on top. At the moment, if we run the throwaway format, he's going to be throwing away a 4th place, meaning he will have the perfect score. He's not far off that anyway at this stage of the game. And we know that Johnny has told everyone he's moving up onto the 250 OR3 gate next year, so he desperately wants that championship before he moves on up and out. Buerter then on top with a 93. It's not the perfect score, but it's not far off. Karam only 4 points on the page ahead of Alexander, so things will get tight and tasty in the second half of the season. Van der Merwe in the 4, Leslie in the 5, ahead of Van der Westhuizen, Battersby, Jonk, Swartz, and Jonker. Buerter then, king of the screaming 125s for now. Can he nail down his championship before moving on out of the gate? The gate he's heading to is going to be the OR3s. This is a stacked field where there are 1 or 2 standouts, but to make the top 5 is anyone's guess or game at the moment. There are so many strong kids on this gate right now, and a couple of old dogs with plenty of experience as well. Carl McKenzie just didn't get the life that he wanted on the 125s, kind of outgrew the machine too early and was desperate to make the move up into the 250s. When that move came, it was up onto the Pepsi Plastics factory Kawasaki squad, with a 4th, 8th, 11th, and then his best ride of the season at the last round before the close down. It was Ventersdorp that saw 3rd place to Carl Mackenzie, and that's why we see him now tickling his way inside of the top 5. He's chasing down on the back wheel of the 2-time reigning champ. 2019 and 2020 OR3s was all about Peter Karam, but he has yet to see the top 2 steps of the podium. A modest start to the season, a 5th and a 6th. He came to life at Heidelberg at the fast one, as we were to expect as well. He likes it when it gets wide open. 3rd place that time around, but then dropped back down at Ventersdorp with an 8th place. Karam should be challenging for top 3s at every round, but maybe something's going to click in the second half of the tour for the 2-time champ to see if he can go for the 3-peat. It's a big ask at this stage of the game though, with some big swingers a little bit further up the road. Coming into the season, Davin Cocker, it was tough to bet against him. He is stellar fast on that 250. He gets most of the hole shots and he runs some of the fastest laps out there. In fact, eye-watering lap times that make him a scary rider against some of the 350s and 450s as well. A first, and then a 0. So without that 0, he would have been absolutely unstoppable. Rustenburg, Modi Molly and Heidelberg were all about Cocker. But the 0 came at Ventersdorp with a mechanical, and that's why we're going to have to see him pick himself up for the second half of the season and get himself back onto the top 2 steps. Second place at the moment, held by multiple 250 and OR3 former champion Taki Bogiargis, brought into the factory Kawasaki Pepsin plastic squad to get that Kawasaki up and moving, and that's exactly what he's done. Modest start, listen to these numbers. 3rd place at round number 1. 4th place at round number 2, but 2 second places coming out of Heidelberg and Ventersdorp see him as the top Kawasaki. And the old dog has still got the skills to pay the bills against the kids, and he may well yet take a win as we go into the second half of the tour. Experience can deliver in the right hands. And from possibly the oldest rider on the 250 gate to one of the youngest riders on the 250 gate, the man that now leads the championship charge, the reigning 125cc champion from 2020, and the guy that has gelled super quick coming out of that gate onto the 4-stroke 250s, Matty Wilson. 2 second places coming out of Rustenburg and Modi Molly, a 4th place at Heidelberg at the fast one, where he had his challenges on the day, but he bounced back nicely to take the final race of the first half of the season at Ventersdorp. Matty Wilson is starting to really set his stall out, and he's able to run really high in the overalls. A couple of events, he has been inside the top 10 in the overalls against some of the big bikes, almost inside the top 5 at tracks that really suit his riding style. The MCA Husqvarna rider is starting to know his own speed and confidence at every single round. He now knows he can race for the number 1s at every single race. And that's exactly what he's doing. Check out the numbers though. Only 5 points separating Wilson from Bogiargis. Cocker not too far off. And that's all before the throwaway scenario comes into play. Karam's there in 4th ahead of Mackenzie, Fulyoun, Mary's coming on strong as well. Watch out for that kid to jump on up. He's ahead of Blum, Wenzel and Esterhazen at the moment. But it's the Wilson, Bogiargis and Cocker show right now. OR2s was going to be a tough call. There were 1 or 2 standout riders, but also a couple of riders that had come back into racing from a few years out, and a few Pro-Am riders that had made the big move up to see what they could do. On the comeback trail was Brendan Kotzer. He'd been out of racing for around about 4 or 5 years, and he swung a leg and had a modest start to his championship campaign. For a comeback ride, 12th place at Rustenburg wasn't too bad. He improved drastically when we went to Modi Molly, so he'd definitely been turning the laps and hitting the gym hard. 9th place that time around. A massive improvement at Heidelberg at the high-speed track saw Brendan Kotzer up into 4th place. That was his highest ride of the season as he dropped 1 position at Ventersdorp in the tech zone. But his numbers have been steadily improving and he's sitting inside the top 5. Watch out for a potential top 3 come the end of the season, and that'll see him jump up in the championship order as well. It's very close between 5th and 4th right now. Francois de Greef also dusted off his boots at the beginning of 2020. That foreshortened the season really saw him climb the ladder. He took a ton of top 3s that time around. This time though, it is a more stacked field and numbers are going to be harder to come by. A 9th, a 4th, A standout ride at Heidelberg in the high speed, which was definitely suiting his riding style. That was a number 2 spot. That was an incredible ride that set him up nicely for the championship. Then a 4th place at the more varied terrain at Ventersdorp. Didn't really suit his riding style, he didn't enjoy the terrain, but 4th place still showed that his pace was right there, and he's good off the gate as well, so it does tend to stay out of a lot of the dust. Jean Niebuhr for Ruban Racing has been a huge story this year. The reigning champion coming out of the OR2 Pro-Ams from last season. Now he had to make the big move up to line up with the pros. His pace shows that he has definitely found his home as well. A 7th place, but that really didn't show what he could do as he backed up a third, and another third to now sit 3rd in points. The first race was a dip in the water. Now he is comfortable to go swim in the laps. Jean Niebuhr is a threat at every single race now, and his 3rd place in points will make a lot of guys super scared. 2nd place at the moment is the Devastator. 2nd on points coming out of his first season of racing 250s, where his wild and ragged style was sometimes difficult to watch. It's even scarier on the 350. The Vans Racing Husqvarna rider, though, somehow is able to tame the beast, and he walked away with 2nd at the opening round. He had a bogey ride at Modi Molly, where his ragged style just didn't suit the demanding terrain, and he dropped down to 5th place. He took his first ever GXCC win at Heidelberg, and then he almost backed it up with another win at Ventersdorp. He was right on the back wheel of the race winner going into the final lap, and just couldn't hang it out there. 2nd place at the final round, but the speed and now the consistency is there for the Devastator. Another win is definitely on the cards in the second half of the tour. This is his championship rival, the brawler, Ian Rawle, who is starting to walk away with more overall wins on the OR2 gate and beating out a ton of the 450s. He came into the season with 1 goal and 1 goal alone. That was to hammer the nail and get another championship under his belt. A first at the opening round showed that he meant business. He backed it up at Modi Molly with another 1st place, and with that, he is sitting in a very strong position in the National Championship Tour as well. His bogey ride came at Heidelberg, where he had a high-speed crash, but still got points on the plate for a 9th place ride. He screwed his head back on, and even though he had an elbows-up day-long race with the Devastator Devon Smith at Ventersdorp, he came out on top with a win, and that sees Ian Rawle once again as the man to beat on the championship tour. It's going to be a tough ride, though, for the rest of the season. The points are close. Just 2 points in it between Rawle and Smith. Niebuhr, the best of the rest at the moment, but also only 4 points ahead of De Greef, with Kotze coming on strong, the best of the rest in the number 5, ahead of Ruan Merry. Quinton Fenter and Brendan Berger tied on the number 7, ahead of Masango, De Silva, and Nordea. But watch out, this will go down to the wire between the Brawler and the Devastator, some of the wildest riders on the GXCC gate. Our last gate is going to be all about the big bangers. In the OR1 gate for 2020, playing the strategic game, Ruan Smith comes into 2021 as the reigning champion, but you have never seen the OR1s this stacked in your life. Multiple manufacturers and big pace and talent. Craig Alcock has had a journey like you can't believe. In only 4 seasons, he's come from a WOW rider to an OR Pro rider. Now he is a Pro factory rider coming out of Kawasaki and running under the Pepsi Plastics colors. He sits in 5th with a 13th, 7th, and a double of deuces in the 6s. Craig Alcock has definitely found his place on the Pro category, and he'll stay in the top 5 if he can bring those consistent rides as he's become famous for in the second half of the season. A new approach coming out of Alcock. He's really working on a smoother riding style, not putting pressure on himself, just making sure he's on the line and sees the flag every single time. A former multiple champion on the GXCC Tour, JC Nienaber has not had it all his own way, although the season started very similar as to how it ended, which was him back on full pace and taking wins. Rustenberg showed that he'd done all of his homework, was comfortable on his machine, and comfortable on the top step of the podium once again. Second round, Modi Molly, not so good. 10th place this time around, but he did get back on point at Heidelberg and delivered a number 2 spot, as we'd expect on the high-speed, old-school layout track. A 0, though, at Ventersdorp has dropped him down. That's why we're seeing him down in the number 4 spot. John Kerr de Lange, a good buddy of JC's in fact, and a rider that has been out there lining up for championships every single time. He does play the long and consistent game. 6th place, 6th place, 8th, and at the final run at Ventersdorp, we started to see a little bit of shining light coming out of John there. 5th place sees him jump up into 3rd. It's consistency and race finishes that pays the bills, and sometimes luck can really allow you to climb that championship ladder. 3rd place is a great result at the moment for John Kerr de Lange, but there are possibly still 4 rounds still remaining on the calendar and the tour. Story of the season in the Big Bangers has been new blood and new bikes. At the opening round, Tyrone Beverley picked up a ride from CIT, got on the big 450 Husqvarna and was rocking the franchise company colours. Remember, this kid has spent years on 250 smokers and 250 thumpers, so to tame a big 450 beast was a big ask. Problems when he jammed up his back wheel at the opening round gave him a 15th, but since then it's been a 4th, a 5th, and then a career best 3rd place at Ventersdorp, and we see Tyrone Beverley getting himself up into a 2 spot. Good numbers on the page, and the confidence is right there now. Beverley not far off getting the big win that he's been desperate to see in his future. And then how's this for a story? We have an exact point tie scenario going into round number 5. The unstoppable Mikey Pentecost, or he certainly was at the beginning of last season. This year, at the opening round, the same fate that befell Beverley befell this guy. Jammed up his back wheel and had to walk away with a low result. It was a 18th place finish for Mikey Pentecost. But since then, it's been wins. Modi, Heidelberg and Ventersdorp. The momentum is definitely with Magic Mike. But can he hold off the hard-charging D'Artagnan Lovejoy? These guys have got the exact same numbers on the page, but it's Pentecost that has the most wins. His rival, D'Artagnan Lovejoy, former multiple GXCC champion and the man that Kawasaki and Pepsi Plastics have put their faith in for the 2021 tour. He's been pretty much a privateer for most of his career. Now he has got the full support, the full package, and comfy on the green machine now. A 4th place at the opening round. Then a 2nd, his best ride of the season at Modi Molly. Also did him a good job in the national championship standings as well. A 3rd place at Heidelberg showed his consistency and also showed what the new machine could do on the high-speed terrain. He dropped down to a 4th place with a tyre failure at the Ventersdorp round, whilst in the battle for the race lead. The Dart on 78 points, Pentecost on 78 points, and the big tiebreaker heading into round number 5. Beverley's close by though, and could be a championship spoiler. De Lange's right there, Nienaber and Alcock, they can all take wins. Van Niekerk hasn't shown his form just yet as well. He could be able to be a bit of a spoiler. He's ahead of Potgieter. Smith and Brits are tied down there in 8th place, ahead of Engelbrecht and Hull. But look at the points at the top. It's Dart versus Magic Mike. So that's it for the pro categories. Next up will be our final wrap-up, the support class races. After that, we'll get ourselves ready for round number 5 of the GXCCs out in Delmas. This GXCC racing action powered by Dunlop was brought to you by SPX Logistics, Dunlop, RME, Bearings and Transmission, and driven by the Bikers Warehouse. So that's the GXCC Pro shows. That means we are 3 shows of 4 deep into our mid-season review. We did the juniors, the quads, that was the pro show, and the support classes will be coming forward in 2 weeks' time. We're going to get ourselves ready this week to bring you next week's Hollywood Hills shows. That will be the full edit of the Farm Jam that went down this weekend. And also a few other things went down this weekend. It was Bathurst. That was the next round of the National Enduros. And the big swingers, as always, Brett Swanepoel hammered the nail. Brad Cox was right up there. Heinrich Ousted, one of his best ever nationals. Luke Walker was also up there running the numbers. So we'll keep an eye on that championship, but we'll review that closer to the end of the year and get ourselves ready to go forward into their championship. And then upcoming this weekend out at Matat, if it's not snowing, that is, then again, when's the last time anyone raced a national off-road or cross-country in the snow? Might be making history. That's going to be Matat this coming weekend. I'm not going to be out there reviewing that, but we'll keep an eye on the press and report that back in next week's show at the end of the Farm Jam edit. For now, guys, we've got plenty of work to do. We're going to push some buttons and make the wheels spin. We're racing again, guys. We could not be happier. Just keep that training going. We'll announce the next confirmed dates for Farm Jam round number 4, and we'll confirm some of the details going forward into Delmas GXCC round number 5. The wheels are spinning once again, guys. Hang tough. It's all good.